Um, for those that may not know, I'm Shanika Ward. I'm the current Atlanta chapter president for BDPA Atlanta. For all you all that are kind of on the call just now, Victor is kind of highlighting some of some of the recent events from the conference that we had this past April. So, I mean, August, another month that starts with A. but but essentially, we didn't have a meeting in August because we were at the conference, and this is our first session back since then. So thanks again, Matrix, for everything that you've been doing with all of our content this year. But yeah, just a quick recap from conference. So for Atlanta, I think I was saying was definitely I would feel like one of our most winningest years. Of course, chapter of year is a great win. But in addition to, I guess the other awards that you potentially could get are local members, like Ken Reeves getting the Pace Setter award for leadership this year. A lot of our students, like our IT Showcase students, are the students that competed in the inaugural esports competition that happened this year, and the high school coding competition students all placed and are able to take home some scholarships, or as Victor was saying, funds that they're kind of just getting back immediately, so they don't have to wait till college to actually have like the awards granted to them. So in addition to that, the career fair that was happening, and all of the, I guess, the like networking and festivities that we have going on at the conferences. So the conference for 2024 will be in Atlanta again, and as more details roll out, we'll share those. But I guess the conference is, at least for us, one of the ways to kind of, I guess, showcase all of the, like, I guess, the preparation and, I guess, background polling, I guess, with our like students throughout the year. And that's like one of the areas to showcase that. I think as BDPA nationally grows, there should be more to come. Like, I think this year was, I think, also an inaugural robotics competition where I think college students were participating that years prior. I know there's data science and there's Cloud Academy, so more to come. And a lot where I believe BDPA will be going is that not all of the competitions will be limited to students, like will be available for industry professionals as well too. So more details to come. So I guess keep a lookout for that. And then I guess to back up a little bit, so for those that this may be their first BDPA Atlanta session or first BDPA session, so we're a membership organization focused on technology. One of our mottos is from the classroom to the boardroom, and we're here for, I guess, kind of overall like general exposure to STEM and leadership development skills. Our, I guess, focus is we want to be the bridge between those that have and those that do not. So we want to be here to provide enrichment to all of you. To highlight our sponsors again. So again, thank you, Matrix, for helping us with all our content these past couple of years, and our speakers. State Farm has also been a really big sponsor of ours. So I think with that, I'll hand it over to John to introduce our speaker.
Sounds great. Thanks, Shanika. And thank you, Alvin, for facilitating so we've been doing this leadership development series all year long, and I can't think of another topic that might be, as meaningful as accountability to a leader, and how you can gain that, how you can establish it, and do it in a way where it's not, with a heavy hand, I guess, a command and control type of hand, which is so old school, right? And the day of agility, now we're looking to empower people and, have that just kind of bubble up, right? Thank you for grabbing this topic. As we kicked off the year, we had a whole host of topics, some excellent ones, and I was so hoping one of our speakers would grab this topic and want to expound upon it. So thank you for doing that, Alvin. And Alvin, like so many of our speakers that we've had over the last couple of years, so giving in their time and their skills. This is the second time Alvin has been with our group. He was with us a year or two back when we were in kind of a workshop series on, this was, back in the pandemic, we kind of went through the phases of like, oh boy, everyone's scared. It was rough. People were losing their jobs. And then kind of the next phase of the pandemic was, this hard charge back and all this opportunity and everything. But in that first, those scary days, we had a lot of workshops with, working on your resume, working on interview skills, working on your LinkedIn profile. And Alvin was a big part of one of those panels and so helpful to a large group that was with us that night. So thank you again for your investment of time. Alvin, do you mind if I put Jimmy on the spot and maybe have him, like, he goes so far back with you that maybe he would like introduce you, talk a little bit about your back. I mean, I know you from Cox and Qualitas. You're a board member at the University of Richmond, right, in the business school. Jimmy, what would you like to add about Alvin before we kick it off?
Happy to do this. Alvin's one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. We've known each other for about 20 years. We've worked together in the capacities of, I've represented him as a candidate. I've worked with him as a client in multiple organizations. The values that Alvin brings to the table really are perfect for this kind of discussion in a world in which, we're striving to have leadership as the attribute that welcomes people into the workplace and to do the right kind of work versus, as John was just saying, management that is more, directive and dictating on a downward trajectory. Alvin represents, a progressive mindset and behavior that really exemplifies the right characteristics that make up a good, strong leadership core. I really have, the most respect for Alvin as a person, as a leader, and we're lucky to have him tonight speaking with us.
Wow, I don't know what I'm going to say next. Jimmy and John are two of my favorite people. Always giving of their time and giving of themselves, and I'm really glad to have them. I call them part of my board of mentors. I always say it's not good just to have one mentor, but have a board, because typically one person just has one perspective. And when you have a board of mentors, you can really go a long way. So I include them as part of my board of mentors. So, really thank you for that warm introduction, and hopefully I can do justice to this topic tonight. But I want to make it fun. I'm glad it's kind of quaint. I thought about how to keep us engaged. So I know everybody likes to receive a surprise or a gift. So I've got a few little giveaways, but you got to be engaged to kind of win. So to the spoil goes to winner, right? So so when we get started, I'll bring up the PowerPoint, and this is one of my topics. I like to talk about accountability in organizations, and hopefully, like I said, I'll do this topic justice. So let me get this Zoom control thing out of the way, and we'll get into this. Let's see. Okay, now somebody told me today how to, make it a floating meeting control. There we go. And can you see this presentation?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about gaining accountability, and I'll talk a little bit about myself, and I want to talk through this from the eyes of having conversations and communication. So I'll just give a little background about me. I work for a company called Quality Standard. I'm the managing director there, and what we do, we focus on quality engineering services and solution, and we put it in the context of what clients really need in their quality organization. So I take a really unique approach. I try and take their vision and culture first, such that we can really craft a really good solution to their needs. I like Frank and Colby a lot. So typically I like to focus with the end in mind to begin the journey. So thinking about where we need to end up such that we can get to where we need by starting first things first. So just a little bit about me. Not going to do a bunch of marketing on that. So let's get into it. So what is leadership accountability? So when I think about it as someone that takes responsibility for all their actions and results, no matter if it's good or bad, but someone that, you hear this term a lot pushed around, the buck stops here. So when you have a leader like someone that takes full accountability for the actions, they're good or bad, you really can drive the organization in a positive way. But also, it's not about just driving the organization, because the most valuable product in your organization is your people. And your people are those that you build that trust and respect from. So in accountability, the thing that we really want to do is we want to encourage others to be accountable, not just ourselves, but we want to be that leading example and shining example such that others, when they see us and know that we're accountable, they feel unfeathered and free to act in a way that really pushes forward our missions and vision and builds a really nice culture in the organization. So what we really can do is we can be transparent. You can drop your guard down. You can talk unfeathered, and you can connect in ways that you're really typically don't connect in organizations, and focus on the right things. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I'm having a little technical difficulty. So all of us work in technology, and we look at this thing called responsibility versus accountability. And I was listening to John talk about the interview series that I sat on the panel. I was looking at these two topics, responsibility versus accountability for leaders. And there's a couple words that pop out to me over another when you're trying to be a leader. So if you look at things that leaders, they direct, they're accountable, they're the ultimate person of ownership. So when you look at words like ownership, accountability, directs, really you see that person in control. As you talk about responsibility, things come out as doers. And if you just take your resume and you take a look at it, if you're trying to look at to be a leader and want to be a leader, you want to spruce up your resume with words that talk about accountability. And perfect words are accountable, directs, and ultimate ownership. Whereas contributors or doers, if you're looking for that type of role, you want to put things like develop or facilitates or coordinate. So when you're looking at your resume, this is a really good area from accountability versus responsibility just to dive in from. So when you look at your resume, what do you see the difference in when it means to be a leader versus being responsible as a contributor? Maybe not. We're all leaders, right?
That's interesting. I don't think I've really thought about it too much, at least not recently. So I'm like thinking about it now.
And that's actually, that's one of the points. The point that you're making is something that we share internal to our organization, is when you're looking for new opportunities, new roles, does your resume identify you as an individual contributor or a strategic individual, right? So someone that can think broader, that can rally others, that can be accountable for a larger scope of work, and it's not just based on your individual skill set, right? So, and you'd find there are a lot of people that are great individual contributors that get promoted into these accountable roles, but they're not ready for it because it's just a different talent associated with that. But definitely, I see the difference.
And we're all in technology, and this area is getting more automated with AI and applications that check your resumes. And it's an area where you can quickly get rejected from an opportunity that you're primed for. So I would just add as just a note, just to take stock in how do you present yourself on your resume. So just when we do something really quick, let's do a little poll and just talk about accountability. What do you think are some of the attributes that make up accountability? If you had 3 words to talk about from accountability, or we talk about the 3 C's of accountability, what would you think they would be? And this is for a nice Amazon $25 gift card.
I was you had them listed here. I was about to say courage. I'm like, oh yeah, the courage and commitment listed on the screen.
That's that technology again. But yeah, so I'm going to get this fixed. But yeah, courage, character, and commitment. And I always think about a 4th C, which is communication. So if you look at this, the 3 C's of accountability, you kind of see communication wraps around commitment, courage, and character. Why do you think you need to be courageous to be accountable? What would be one of the reasons that we need to be really courageous to be accountable?
To communicate risks.
Communicate risks, right? That's a really good one. Any other thoughts around being courageous?
It's another C, but you might go against the consensus.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that is really great, John. Consensus is another C. That is another good C. Any other C's you can think about?
Oh, he said C. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well,
Clarity.
A or B?
Clarity.
Clarity. Yeah, clarity. Always want to be clear in our communications, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I always think about this one thing that I think about sometimes when I was starting off at IBM and when I was right out of college. We're always are trying to align ourselves in the organization such that we can move up in the ranks. And at some point in your career, you're going to come across and you're going to be challenged with this, and you're going to have to be courageous about it. You're going to face this loyalty test versus an integrity test. So there's going to come a time when there's going to be a situation where you're going to have integrity, but also try and be loyal. And it is one of those tests that courage comes into play really in a big way. Has anybody ever had that experience where integrity and loyalty were at odds in your career?
Of course.
Of course.
Yes.
Would you like to share?
I'm sure everyone is.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things that, it does come up, and, I think there is a way to have integrity, but still be loyal to the organization and the mission that's going on. So, this is an area where you have to really be courageous and transparent. I'll just spend just a couple of seconds on this 3 C's accountability chart. It kind of goes from the left to the right. So when we're thinking about being accountable, we always want to start with the mission of why we're being accountable. And we turn that into a vision as we step upwards. And then we pull in our values and create a strategy and make some key decisions of how we're going to get to where we are. Now, to continue to make that house and be committed to your being accountable and be courageous and have that character, you want to clarify. You want to have clear communications, be clear. You want to be able to connect with others who you're messaging to, but you also want to do it in a very collaborative way. And at the end, we say close out, but really you're celebrating that you've gotten to the end of the journey and you're going to start another journey or expedition, or you may just kind of rinse and repeat. So just think about every time, every communication you have, you're going to be accountable for it. And the key components are just commitment, courage, and character, all wrapped around in your communications.
Hey, Alvin, I saw in the chat, it looked like Shanika was suggesting hearing maybe some stories. And it looked like a couple of people maybe were ready to share about the loyalty versus the integrity piece. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in or not, but I saw that in the chat.
Anyone who's got a project management story? I'm sure there are plenty of project management stories around this.
I don't have a project management story. Well, I guess maybe it kind of is, but without disclosing too much, it was a government bid, and I was asked to place my signature on something being completed.
Mhm.
And of course, these individual managers and they've always been very nice and promoted me into kind of develop different roles and kind of develop me. So it was a hard thing to do. And so I did not do it, but of course that didn't go over well. I became targeted to get, to be removed, but I stuck to what I felt was right. And needless to say, I ended up still staying there, but 2 years later, that particular manager or that particular person was actually removed. So it,
Wow.
that was it.
I think about one of my first integrity lawyer was like when I was being represented by a firm representing me for a client engagement, and my resume had been embellished. And I'm sitting there with the interviewers, and we're going through, and they're going down my resume, and they brought up a few skill sets that I did not have. And, I could have kind of faked it, but, I just kind of stood up and just said, that's not me. And one of the things I always did was always carried my resume with me on every interview, and just pulled it out, and I just showed them this is the true me. And I could have been loyal to individuals representing me that I was good friends with, but at the end of the day, your brand is your brand, and people respect that. And I didn't get that job, but it was a good experience for me in the end. So I was able to celebrate even not getting the role, because at the end of the day, I was, I stood up for what was right and being courageous. Okay, so why don't we move on? So Victor, I guess you'll get the prize even though, so. And we may have a few more of these technical difficulties, so we may, we'll probably may have a few more of these technical difficulties. Okay. So now that we kind of understand what accountability is, want to just ask, so one of the quicker ways to recognize accountability is just to look at the opposite. So where do we see non-accountability? So a few places that we see it are in the community. So you can see accountability when in associations that you're with, different affinity groups, even the government that represents us, right? You also see it with your family. You see it among your siblings, children, friends, and even in your workplace with managers and leaders, your peers, and different teams. But if you look at just accountability, I kind of think accountability is kind of like a team sport. It's not just a solo act. It really takes multiple people. You're involved with multiple people to have good accountability. So where you see it and you don't see it, or anywhere where there's a group or a team, I would say. Now, what are the things that really, what are the signs when you see accountability break down? There are probably 3 areas where I see it break down. There's usually physical signs. You see people are stressed, they have anxiety, the mood, and they get moody and they have a lot of tension. And some just start breathing really hard because they just can't handle and be courageous about it. But also you see kind of unplanned absence, people getting sick because of the stress. You also see them get very emotional. We get fearful when we can't be accountable. We get anger. We start raising our voice. So with their physical signs, their emotional signs, and then the behavior kicks in. We start avoiding each other. We start ghosting each other. And one of the real telltale signs is someone becomes silent or absent. Silence, I would say, is probably the most telling sign of non-accountability or accountability. When someone goes silent or dark, really you can tell that there's some breakdown in the accountability structure. So I would just ask, what from just accountability and breaking down accountability, what areas or in your daily work where you see people not accountable, or are they raised to the bar and be very accountable? Where do you typically see that? There's another prize coming up, so we can.
Go ahead, Q. You can say what your leader, man. It's okay.
Oh no, I'm not gonna put you on blast with this.
Well, recently at work for me, I've gone from, I'm a PM, I've gone from managing 1 team to 3.
Okay.
And the transfer over this quarter from 1 to 3, the other 2 teams, has been a little bit difficult and has left me a little bit frustrated because I'm having to go back and ask, where's this, where's that? We just had a mid-quarter review. I had to ask 3 times, how did you do your mid-quarter review last quarter so I can stay consistent? I'm not one who believes in making a bunch of changes when you're new to the team or new to the situation. You need to learn what's going on and then make suggestions later. But it was not just this particular thing about the mid-quarter review. There was another Excel spreadsheet I haven't seen before. And can you just walk me through it this one time? And this person just kept resetting the meeting request. I'm like, I'm thinking, I don't have time for this. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I got other things to do. I still have another team. I'm still onboarding with the other 2 teams. I need for you to set some time. If you just tell me what time is best for you, I'll make it happen. And just walk me through it. But the avoiding, and I felt that there was some tension and there was some moodiness with that. I'm like, are you upset because you're losing these 2 teams? You can have them back as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I saw that and I didn't really like that. But before this, I didn't say anything, but I had noticed this person not available on Fridays. The child is always sick. There's always some excuse, family is sick. I'm like, what's going on? This is when you're supposed to pull closer to that extended family so they can help take care of a situation if you have an emergency or health situation. But I saw that in him and I brought it up to my program manager, like, have you guys stepped up to talk with him? I'm gonna do what I'll fall through, I'll fall down and get back up and figure out what the processes are. And I'm gonna write it down. I believe in breadcrumbs for the next person. So when I'm no longer there will be some confluence pages out there and say, we did this step here. This was the agenda here. This is how long it took. This is what we discussed. But I did see that. Now it was kind of hurtful on my side because whatever was going on didn't have anything to do with Bridget.
Right.
So
You know,
I'm like,
and that-
what is
It's
this?
interesting you say that at the end, Bridget, that typically when these situations occur, a lot of times it's not about the relationship. It's probably something else that's going on, right? And it's good to hear it. But I want to save your story for the end and talk about how we can resolve it. So I'll ask, how did you resolve it, or did you resolve it?
Well, we had the mid-quarter review on Tuesday. We made it through. Just say that. They asked for the senior director asked for an agenda. One was not given. I didn't have one ready for that day. For the next meeting I did. So I'm just finding my way through. I didn't like the snippy little comment she made at the end, but I've asked 3 times. I asked her once, I asked him twice. I did everything I could do. Now, my program manager said, you should go ahead and plan it the way you wanted to plan it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, I'm learning the environment. So that's where I am. I'm gonna just chuck it up for that. Learn
Okay.
the environment.
Well, hopefully, as we close out our presentation today, we can give you a tool to help with that conversation, to maybe help unpack that a little bit. So let's just be hopeful that we can have you can have something to take away.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, so avoidance, yes, ghosting, silencing, that is a real telltale sign. And I would tell you one of the reasons people go to this mode of avoidance, ghosting, and silence is they cannot tell their story in a respectful way. And they become silent and they ghost because they cannot find the words. And that's where, as leaders, where we step up and we help individuals overcome these type of behavioral challenges that they have, to help them be more accountable and get them on the path. And that's the real good sign of a leader that can mentor, provide the empathy and the support that is needed such to get a team member or a peer to the point where they are engaging again back with the team and they become more productive. And that helps the whole organization when we can do that. So if we're thinking about, measuring an organization, measuring accountability in an organization, what would be some of the things that you would say that we would be good barometers to understand if organization has really good accountability?
For me, this man Quiddy is Q. I would say just having a system like we'll have like a peer review or
Peer review.
peer review. Just have understanding like what's going on with the situation and owning up to the accountability.
Okay, and so peer reviews are one way we can measure accountability. True. Okay. Anything else we can measure how organization is doing with being accountable? Or even, let's say, a team member or a peer, how can we measure how accountable they are? What would be some of the characteristics we would look for?
Well, it is getting towards the end of the year. So now I see in my organization, there is an employee engagement survey that's being sent around, and you hear managers, I'm going to say encouraging the employees, please do the survey, please do the survey, please do the survey. I did the survey the first time you asked me. I keep hearing that same song, please do the survey. So right now, they really are asking us to do that survey so they can figure out if there are issues and how they can correct them. So
Exactly. And I see someone put in the chat, open to feedback. And I
Yeah.
think we started off by talking, the model is about communication. So when we think about, measuring, there are many things around communication. Engagement, peer reviews, feedback are really good ones. So let's just look at what are some of the ones that typically we measure organizations. So engagement. Bridget, I think you said that one, you're at the top. So I'm going to give you that $25 Starbucks gift card.
One of
Okay.
my favorite places. Thank you.
Company competence. When you see a company has the culture around competence, when we're aligned, that means we're communicating well and people are getting involved. Enablement. Feedback was in the chat, and recognizing, not just feedback, but also recognizing employees. When you see team members are being innovative, so that means they're being curious and leaders are helping them to explore other areas. And then just the leadership portion of it. So these are typical areas where we can measure accountability within organizations. So we talked about, some of the behaviors that stymie being accountable and when we see it. But, I want to leave you with something to help you overcome some of these challenges, because when communication and accountability breaks down, stakes are really high for a company. We cannot move forward with our vision and mission. The company becomes unprofitable. A lot of errors happen. So we want to have something that we can overcome this challenge. And so, Bridget, you brought up a really good point about the avoidance with an employee. And let's use that example and just kind of talk about how we can overcome and pull employees back in, get them to engage, receive the feedback, and make them really good corporate citizens, or just help them with their brands, because this is one of the things around accountability, communication, being committed and courageous to take on these things. So let's just kind of talk about it. So I'm a trainer in what we call crucial conversation, and it's about really mastering the dialogues or stories, and it helps organizations performance and health, because we can overcome any challenge if we can communicate well to each other. So how do we do this? So there's two principles around crucial conversation. The first is ensuring that we're engaging with each other. And the second part of it is having equity and inclusion. So really just having empathy and making sure everybody is included within the conversation. And it's really a very simple 7-step process, right? So typically within these crucial conversations, what really happens, what is the one thing when someone stops talking to you or something breaks down with accountability? There's two things that typically happen. Either the person doesn't respect you as much as they used to, so respect is lost, but also there's some trust that's lost as well because they feel violated. And really crucial conversation is to overcome that violation of respect and trust. So we have to look at what happened. So we start from our heart. We know what our intention was. So we start and we want to focus on what happened or what is happening. Then we want to look. We want to make sure that we can make it a safe place such that we can have this conversation. So if it's not safe because someone may get physically assaulted or verbally assaulted, we don't want that to happen. We don't want to make the conversation or the challenge any bigger than what it is. So we want to look and make sure that we can make it into a very safe place to have this dialogue. Now, once we learn how to do it and make it safe, we want to take the story and we want to turn it into a dialogue where we can pull the other person in and have a very respectful dialogue to regain their trust and their respect. Now, part of that mastering of your story is we want an outcome, right? We want to have a very productive outcome. We want to get to the other side of the rainbow. So we want to make sure that we can clearly state our path and our intention of what we want to happen within that conversation. But we don't want to be so one-sided with our path. We want to also help the other person explore their path, because it has to be a really good partnership, because we have to pull them back in to regain their respect and trust. So how we do that is we listen to what they're saying. So we want to listen to what they're saying and make sure we heard what they said. Now, one of the things that we typically do is to basically repeat what they said in a way that they said it, right? So so Bridget, if we take yours about the avoidance, we could ask them, we could repeat what they say and say, how do you see it, right? And then that way it opens up the door for them to allow you to talk a little bit more about how, if they felt disrespected or they lost trust, and why they're avoiding in the situation. So you turn it back on them. Now, I will say there have been situations where the person doesn't want to be pulled in, right? It may not be the right time, okay? So you can always follow up and just say, we can move, this to a later time when you're ready to talk. But we want to explore their path and listen to what they're saying such that we can get to that point. And then finally, at the end, we want an agreement, right? We don't want to just, have the conversation and nothing happens. We want to follow back up and have some action points. So like frequent meetings to make sure everything is going right. So as a leader, we have to put ourselves out there to do a little bit more to make sure all of our actions are done. So this is the process, just a high level process. We want to engage, make sure we include, but we want to start with the story from the heart. So is this something that, from being accountable, is something you think you could put in your daily practice of just looking, making it safe for someone, exploring and making sure you're listening, and follow up with some action items? Anybody ready to sign up for the course?
This is golden stuff, Alvin. I mean, this is inside of work and outside of work stuff right here. So
look at there.
I have the whole DVD set, and back in the day,
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a really good point. These things around crucial conversation, I've been able to use them on my children as well. So it's, a lot of these tools we can use not just in our professional lives, but also in our personal lives. When I went through the training and became a certified trainer, my trainer had been divorced 3 times, and he did this reconciliation process using crucial conversation just to get to a point where he could have a conversation with his exes. And he told me it worked on 2 of the 3. So he had a 67% ratio, but it is transferable from your professional to your personal life.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that. When you look at what's on screen, just if someone hasn't practiced this from a leadership standpoint, it's amazing what can occur when you start from the heart, right? When you actually break down some barriers, get rid of some assumptions, and just show from a vulnerable place how much you care about the situation, about the other individual, about the circumstances. It creates a completely different environment, completely different dynamic, which allows you to navigate through the tougher parts of the conversation. And one of the beauties from where I sit is that it's become easier for me to not get caught up in the things that sound either disappointing or discouraging or challenging towards me. right? It's become
Exactly.
easier, but that has taken a process. To Shanika's point in the chat, it's taken a significant amount of practice and self-reflection. But when you get to a particular place, like going through these steps,
Yeah.
I mean, it helps you be extremely effective, not only at accountability, but
Right.
at just pure leading, right? Leading others.
So true. So true. Were you going to say something, John?
Can we workshop? Yeah, could you workshop this? Like, I'd love to hear like an actual story. Like I mean, this is like, to me, this is like the heart of the whole thing here. Like this is like a nugget to take away, like what Shanika's saying, practice it or whatever. Like, and I'm just looking at this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I could like articulate a whole situation through this where I've done this. So I don't know if I have a great example of it. So I don't, would you be able to like walk through this, like either something that, you know, professionally or personally where, you know, you did this, or maybe just articulate a story of someone that you were coaching kind of went through it?
Yeah. So, you know, just from you know, managing employees, typically, you know, when they're like missed dates, is typically one that we could do a crucial conversation. Let's just say they're late on a deliverable,
Okay.
and it has held the project up. So it caused like delays in the project. So let's just say we have a developer. So we got Rico, who is a senior developer, Java developer. Rico's part of building a mobile app, and he's assigned to a Scrum team. Rico has been an employee of the company for 3 years, and he's had good performance reviews. But lately, Rico has been late on three that have caused 3 sprints to go past their due dates. So during Rico's one-on-one, we want to talk about his performance with him being late and why he's late and get to the bottom of it. So we want to prepare for that crucial conversation. So this is the recipe that we would follow, but I want to give you a couple things that we want to prepare to get there. So so there are 3 things we want to do to prepare for that conversation. So the first thing we want to do is understand what type of conversation that we want to have. So is this just an opposing opinion? Do we just have a difference of opinion about something, right? So that's one flavor. So we want to understand what type of conversation. Is this about some strong emotion that the employee has or our peer has? Or is this something high stake that is causing a performance problem, such as Rico missing these dates on the sprints and causing the project to be delayed? So first, we want to understand what type of conversation we have, okay? Now, once we understand the conversation, we want to understand what type of role that the individual is playing. Are they playing to being a victim? It's not my fault, okay? They did it to me, right? It's not my fault. So we got to understand, are they playing a victim role? Or maybe they're just playing helpless. Well, there's nothing else I can do about this, right? The company's not set up this way to do this stuff. So why should I be doing this, right? So are they playing like they're helpless? Or the last one is, it's all your fault. They're playing the villain. So once we understand the type of story, we can break that down. Then we can understand what type of role they're playing. We can now use the crucial conversation model to walk us through the 7 steps of how we do that, okay? So we first want to work on ourselves, right? We want to get our place in ourselves so that we get unstuck. And we want to start with our heart, empathy, and we want to then understand and break down what's going on in the situation. And that's called mastering our story. So we want to understand our story We want to get unstuck and take our personal feelings out of it. And we want to start from our heart and be intentional and have empathy about what's going on, but also hold the other person accountable and ourselves accountable too. Because part of that is not just holding them, but it's yourself, because you have to be courageous and committed to do this as a leader. Okay. So now we're ready, right? We're ready to have this conversation. So one of the things I said before was we want to state our path. What do we want to accomplish out of this, right? Now, we also, while we're having this conversation, we want to learn to look. So look also means listen, right? But we want to also keep it safe for everyone within that conversation. But also, the last thing is we want to understand and make sure that the other person, we can explore their path, give them the opportunity to speak, such that we can hear what they need to do. And we put all this in what we call the pool of shared learning. It's like collecting all of the data. Basically, you're gathering and getting your feedback, right? So you're getting all your ducks in a row so that you can make it safe. There's no violence that's going to happen. There's no silence that's going to happen in the conversation. It's a safe space with all this information, okay? So this is what we are doing during the conversation. We're just exploring all the conversation. Now, once the conversation is done, we can move to action. That's just the follow-up. So you want to have a few frequent follow-ups such that you can make sure that we continue to stay on this path of non-silence and non-violence. Violence doesn't have to be physical. It could be mental. It could be passive aggressiveness. So this is why we want to continue to follow up and kind of feed this process. So basically, we're going to rinse and repeat until we get all the negative attributes out of it. So, but this is where we start. We got to understand what kind of conversation, what the person's role and our role, and then we can build that conversation. And this is what we teach in the course. This is, there's lots of material out there on this. Like Victor says, I have the audiobooks too, and all the different material. Crucial Conversation is the first course in the accountability series. The next level is Crucial Accountability. It takes this step one step further. So this is Resonate, getting your type of story, understanding the person, the role. One thing I try and compliment when understanding what type of role the other person is playing. There's a guy he's a psychologist, his name is Eric Burns. He's a psychologist, and he has this model, it's called the adult parent-child model, okay? So sometimes they call it the adult parent-child model. So the three roles, if you think about it, the child, what does a child like to do? A child likes to have fun. It's kind of the lowest level. So they're not really accountable. Then there's the adult level or the parent level. They're more of authoritarian over the children. And then you got that adult where we want to reason with each other. So Eric Burns talks about to have a very productive communication conversation, you need to be at the same level of who you're talking with, right? So if you're talking to a child as a parent, they're just going to want to have fun. That's just their goal. They're not going to listen. They're just going to do what they want to do. So typically you've got to come down to their level and reason with them as a child, right? Because that's the only way they're going to understand. The same thing in a parent-adult relationship. A parent is really like a boss or your manager. So as an adult, as an employee, when you're talking to your parent or the boss, your boss is always going to be authoritarian to you. So you want to turn the conversation to swing your boss to an adult level. So you're talking to each other as adults versus a boss parent, a boss child relationship. So I think about that sometimes, that you want to make sure you're talking at the right level or have the person in the right frame of mind when you're talking with them. So Eric Burns has that parent adult child model. You should just take a look at sometimes. Okay. How are we doing on time? We doing good? Okay. So one of the things I want to leave you with is there is a true accountability model, and it is 5 C's. Okay, so we started off with the 3C model, but this is the model that most managers and leaders utilize within their peer reviews and to understand and hold employees accountable. So the first thing is, the first C is about having a common purpose. So we want to help employees, or help as a leader, help you understand, why does it matter? Why does it matter that we're doing this, right? So we want to connect on the purpose and the vision, right? Now, once we do that, we want to set clear expectations. So we got why are we doing this? And then who and what needs to happen, right? Who's going to do it and what should happen? So we want to make sure we have clear communication. Clear expectations are set on the table. So we want to understand what it means to be done. What does success look like? So we can celebrate together. Then we move to, once we know our purpose, we know our expectation, now it's more like execution. So we want to communicate and align frequently on how we're doing, so we can make sure success is nearby. Now, as this process goes on for accountability, we want to coach and collaborate. So we maybe a few bumps in the road, we might hit a big rock. So we want to adjust. So we don't want to, do it for as a leader. We want to help them think through it, right? So we want to be what we call supportive, right? We want to support their efforts, ask them, how's it going? Okay. Is there anything that you need? To coach and help collaborate with your team members and your peers. And then the last is consequences, right? They're positive and negative. If there's success, they're typically positive, but sometimes there's failure, and we need to take account and be accountable and ownership. So we just need to learn and act. And that's one of the things that sets apart responsibility from accountability, is the consequences. Because at the end of the day, when the dust settles, who's around to help pick up the chips, right? So at the end, the consequences really matter. We need to learn and act from them, even if they're negative, So that really sets apart our accountability leaders. So just to wrap up a few things, as you continue to develop yourself as a leader, some of the things I want you to focus on are, when you're in that accountability role, clarify and re-clarify. It's always good to over-communicate. Help your team members focus on the future. Think past of what they're today. You only can work on what's in front of you, but give them that carrot to focus on the future, okay? Give them feedback. And don't just give feedback, also receive feedback. That's a good leader, okay? But accountability means you take responsibility for success and failure. And you have to help everyone practice throughout the organization, help them practice empathy and a work-life balance. That's really one of the things we have to do. Timely communication and being effective communication. So one of the things we need to do is check in frequently to make sure what we're telling our employees and our team members is actually taking hold. So it's a little bit more work for leaders to do. We need to check in just to make sure. We don't want to do it, but we just want to check in and provide the support that's needed. And while we're in our idle time, when we're not checking in, we need to organize more goals and meet everyone where they're at, okay? You can't provide goals to team members that they will never accomplish. You got to remember, you got to provide goals and bring them along. So you got to meet them where they're at and provide those type of goals. Lastly, encourage. Encourage team members to innovate, be curious, to explore. Give them freedom to do innovation, curiosity, explore, right? So they don't feel like, you know, they're being always delegated to. But as a leader, you do need to delegate. And just lastly, just a few resources that I utilize that I think are some good resources. I like Harvard Business Review. They come out with a lot of nice little 5-10 minute micro learnings that you can read really quickly that are very useful. I get them on LinkedIn all the time. This is one of my favorite authors. His name is Adam Grant. He's a psychologist, but he's got some really good material. One is called Think Again. Another is called Give and Take. And another is called Option B. Adam is kind of a guy who talks about, you know, think about if the other person is right sometimes, instead of how much work you have to do if the other person's really right, instead of challenging their opinion. So he's got a really different way of thinking. And I like a lot of his articles. So Adam Grant is a really good guy. And lastly, become a mentor, but be also mentored as well. So you'll find out as a leader, if you become a leader, a mentor, if you become a mentor, you'll see you're going to have to develop yourself, right, to help mentor someone else. So, but also be mentored yourself. And as I said, as I started off, when I talk about mentoring, I talk about having a board of mentors. So sometimes you need more than one mentor, and I prescribe to having multiple mentors to help me throughout my career. So, so I'll leave you with that. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. Hopefully you find this helpful. And I have left my contact information if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or at my email. Okay. Thank you.
Alan, that was awesome. Thank you. There's some like just golden nugget takeaways from that. This things to work on. I often think, like, in our journeys, how important it is to be able to receive coaching. And I think there's, I don't know, maybe I have a lot of those people in my life where I'm like, I don't know if they're able to receive the coaching. Yeah, I don't know if you have advice on that. Like, how do you get people to be more open to that? Whether it's on accountability or other like leadership, things that you're working with someone on, like to get them to have like an open mind. It probably fits into the recipe of, that process, I would imagine.
Yeah. I think that's more of an individual thing around, receiving, I guess I've just always been humble enough just to accept whatever I can. As I was telling Shaniqua in the beginning, I accepted her help and changed my name from John. So I'm humble in that respect. I think one thing about it is, being able to receive assistance from someone is also, I think if you can change the person environment as well, I think environmental factors are helpful as well. Who you surround yourself with can influence that as well. I think that first C about courageous, I think we all just need to be courageous and put it in a way such that, it's digestible by, our peers, right? Because I think there is a way to do it. It's just, how it's done sometimes, I was just thinking, I coached Little League Baseball when I first moved to Atlanta. And I had this kid that was really good. His name was Sean Jones. He went to University of Georgia. He was a quarterback at Westlake High. But he went to UGA and became a linebacker. He switched position, became a linebacker. He went to the NFL, played 9 years he played some for Cleveland and he played for Cincinnati. But he had a real good career. Sean, he was very talented. I think he was number 4 or 5. He was the baby boy. His mother and father had 4 kids. Long story short, I could instruct Sean and tell him what to do from a baseball coach, but he would never listen. He only listened to his brothers that were above him. They went to Morehouse, played baseball. Sean was a 3-letter sport: basketball, football, baseball. But one day Sean came to practice and he said, coach, I'm able to do that backward hand flip you were showing the other day. He said, my brother showed it to me and it works. And I was like, sometimes it's just the person that they connect with, right? So, sometimes it's just, you can influence someone else to help influence another person. So I was happy that, my advice helped him. And he recognized that later on, but it was through another medium. And sometimes that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, and I'd add on to that, Alvin, when you're coaching, right? And I love that you threw the Little League coaching in there, because my statement is around the fact that coaching occurs before game day.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens before that high stake project moment. It's the continual engagement that you have, those little incremental moments where you get to break down barriers between you and that person. And you get to allow them to influence you, you influence them, no matter what level you're working at. Right. So when you get to that high stake moment, they're more receptive, especially if it's opportunities for improvement, right? They're more receptive for it. Now, we understand in business, you don't always have that opportunity, but as much as you can curate that preseason coaching, that practice, as much as you can curate that prior to those high stake moments, I would say that helps individuals be much more receptive. And to the point, Alvin, of you saying with the backwards flip, you coached him.
Yeah.
He ended up, at least taking heed from someone else, but you did your job, in that. And I think sometimes we get tricked into thinking we didn't do our job because they didn't listen to us immediately. Right. But the reality is you planted, and I think I just saw it pop up in chat, but you planted that seed, someone else, and then it blossomed.
Yeah. And the other thing about it, I wasn't upset, and, sometimes we get upset because someone stole our thought, but, look, at the end of the day, they help the kid, right? So I think we just need to take stock in the win, right? And just say it was a win and move on.
Nice. Yeah. Does anyone have any last questions?
Hello, I don't have a question, but hello, everyone. I don't know if you can see me because I'm
Good
sitting.
evening.
Hello, I'm sitting cozy, just listening in. This is my first class, actually my first BDPA meeting outside of the conference I went to this year. So hello to everyone. I am in the Atlanta area. This is a really great session. Thank you, Alvin, and thank you, my leaders of the new groups that I just joined. Thank you for putting this together. And I love that you said mentorship and coaching and a group of mentors is so important. And it's interesting because just yesterday, one of my clients that I actually coach, she said, sometimes we don't even know we need a coach until we get one. And then you really, really, really realize, oh my goodness, should have had a coach a long time ago. I would be so much further ahead. And so I say that to say thank you, Alvin, for the way you actually laid out this accountability training was really, really great. And as you were going through the slides, and on your last slide, I said to myself, one area that I'm working on for myself is measuring personal measurements of success, even for myself. So yes, as a project manager and as a leader, you measure the success for the team, but also personal measures is something that I'm actually working on for myself. So thank you so much for sharing this. This was awesome. And hello to everyone.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is Bridget. I have one more question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Twice in the last 6 weeks, I have come very close to purchasing a coach to help me in certain areas in my life. So I'm stalling. I know that I need one, but I'm going back and forth. I'll go in, I'm happy and anxious to get one, but then again, I'm like, okay, well, they cost this much money. Is it worth it? So what can I do to help myself get off the bench and say yes, to make a commitment, invest in myself, and just move forward?
Well, can I answer that for you?
Yes.
No, Alvin wants to answer. I can see Victor want to answer, but I have to say it from outsider in because this is my first meeting. So I'm going to answer that for you.
Okay.
The same way you invest in going to have happy hour and going to have cocktails is the same way you say that same investment you need to invest in yourself. How often do we spend money in going to have happy hour and cocktails, and even that gym membership that we keep on our budget, and then we barely go to the gym?
It's true. I just bought a new coat.
Way.
I got 3 in the closet.
See what I'm saying? It's the same way.
Yes.
Invest in yourself. And I'll let Alvin go ahead and
No, go ahead, Victor.
So there, I'm gonna be transparent, Doc, because we've been in enough spaces together. And when you asked that question, my eyes started to water a bit, only because I think sometimes, due to our exposure to certain environments, we don't understand like the complete game, right? And the reality is, there's a game being played.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we don't know the rules. And depending on where our culture and where we come from, we didn't have the luxury of sitting in rooms where our parents and our grandparents were just communicating and dialoguing over particular things that we absorb through osmosis. Therefore, coaches, those that have, kind of been around the block, been in the rooms with people and heard things from all cultures that maybe you haven't had exposure to,
yes.
They bring significant value because you can tell them something and they can help you hear and see things that you probably didn't consider, not because it wasn't there, but due to exposure. Like just because you weren't exposed to it. So I would promote having a coach. I've had plenty of coaches, right? And there are people who may see me in particular environments and say, you don't need a coach. No, I don't care what you're smelling like, you need a coach. Right?
Just think about it. Like
Alvin something you
said,
don't know. Yeah, there's always something you don't know.
Like Alvin said, multiple coaches, because let's think about it. Obama he has a coach to write for him. He may have a financial coach. There's various coaches that you can use. Career coach, you
Yeah.
need them. You need it.
So I would say
You know,
yes,
always-
yes.
So many of us are from the South, and I'm sure most of you heard what your mother always told you. Listen, right? Listen more. And just to encourage you to listen, my mother always told me, she said, divide your words by your number of your ears you have, right? So, speak less, listen more, I think is really valuable, just to hear what everyone else is saying. And I think just that advice, just listen more, it helps you connect with others. And they feel that you're connecting with them when you put down your cell phone and you're looking them in the eye and you're connecting physically with them, and not saying, but you're nodding, right? So there's some physical behaviors that you hear what they're saying and you're agreeing, and you could disagree, right? But I think that is one of the ways that you can learn more and grow more as well.
Thank you.
I'll just share, two other things, two other tools. One tool that I like to use when we're talking about accountability. When I was in consulting, John talked about when I was at Qualitas, I used to have to do RFPs a lot, and we always have to go in and listen to these customer briefings. And one of the sales guys taught me this method, and it really, really adds a lot of value to being a leader. It was called the ICV method, issue, concern, vision. So a lot of times when we're talking to someone, they have a problem, right? And so we need to figure out how to resolve the problem as a leader. So typically the individual has what we call an issue. And so they'll tell you, I have a story. So I had a consultant work for me in Ohio. His name, I can tell his name, he's not on the line here. His name was Barry. So Barry was always late on his status report, sending it to the project manager. So my client, I don't know what's going on with Barry. She would never say that his status report was late. She would just say, Barry, he not capable and blah, blah, blah. And so that was her issue. Now, when we boiled it down and what I found out what her real concern was, is her concern was Barry wasn't submitting his status report on time so that she could read it and go to her manager and give a report about what was going on the project. So that was the true concern. But all the issues she talked about was Barry was just not a good leader, right? He was not a good team player, he's not a good leader. But the true concern was the status report. So what we do is we craft what we call a vision. What is the vision to have her quit talking about the issue and resolve the concern that Barry's not sending in the status report? So we decided to replace Barry, get someone in who's going to send her that status report on time so she can report to her manager. We never heard anything else about Barry again from her. She wasn't happy with the person we gave her because they were very meticulous. And about a month later, she asked for Barry back. But, I think sometimes we have to boil down the issue to what the true concern is to provide a vision to what we're working on as a leader. So, if you can take that ICV model, has really helped me a lot. And just boiling down to what to prioritize and what to focus on.
That was a good example. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Bridget, in your situation, this employee that you're, the avoidance is, you probably see the issue that you see, but there's another concern that's deeper that has to be resolved. And so if you can use that ICV model, you can create that vision to make it better.
All right, thank you. It lets me feel a little bit less, like, I'm not really feeling guilty, but I'm thinking, yes, there's another story behind the story that has
Yes,
been told to
there is
me.
behind the story.
Yes,
That's
something
right.
else.
Yeah.
Nice. Anyone else? All right. Well, again, thank you, Alvin, for joining us this evening, and thanks everyone for all your input. I think it was a really good conversation, pretty interactive.
Very, very interactive. Thank you, Alvin. It would have been interactive. You didn't even need to like do those gift cards, but who doesn't like a Starbucks gift card? My goodness. Thank you
That's
so
right.
much for that. You're so generous. What a great job tonight. Super session. Thank you again. And I'll just put a little plug for next month. So we've got Emily Clay from the Home Depot that she's also someone that has given her time back to our group before on a conversation about the journey from project management to product management. A big wave that's coming across the enterprise, as we all know. So she's going to come on next month, October 18th, and talk about career pathing. So the importance of, as a leader, showing the vision, what you ended with, Alvin, talking about the vision, showing a vision to your team, to your employees about what's ahead for them. So many younger employees, that's just so important to them. They want to know, like, what's my path? What can I do? If I do well, where can I go? So it should be a great session. So just a little plug for that coming up. But again, Alvin, loved it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And we'll see you Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, you all
Yes, we
enjoy your
will.
jazz.
Shanika, buy some of those secondhand tickets. Come on.
Yeah, I think the price is like shot up.
Yeah, they always do.
Well, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening and see you
Yeah.
next month.